A very good evening and welcome to the news tonight, where we get you the day's top stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilshi, and join me over the next 30 minutes for the top stories. But first, the headlines. The row over PM's radio address Mann Ki Baat. Congress demands a blanket ban on the program in view of the upcoming Bihar polls, but the Election Commission says it won't happen for now. The centre bans the Naga militant outfit NSCA in Kaplang for 5 years, taking into account recent activities of the insurgent group. Andhra Pradesh takes the first step towards drought-proofing its areas, becomes the first state to link two rivers, Krishna and Godavari. 2 Indians are kidnapped in war-torn Libya. The government launches efforts to rescue them, with 2 others already in captivity of the Islamic State. And Vice President Ansari holds talks with Cambodian Premier Hun Sen, signs 2 MOUs and discusses shoring up of economic engagement. Top story this evening, adding to the fervour of the Bihar Assembly polls, the Congress, along with the RJD and the JDO, has demanded a blanket ban on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's radio program, Mann Ki Baat. The Election Commission has, however, rejected the appeal. Here are the details.
We take strong objection to the Prime Minister misusing the state broadcaster, the public broadcaster, for political propaganda during a time when crucial elections have been announced and the election schedule also is there as issued by the Election Commission of India.
The battle for Bihar is hotting up by the day. Grand Alliance partners Congress, JDU and RJD have sought a ban on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's radio address to the nation, Mann Ki Baat, till the assembly elections are over. The Grand Alliance alleges misuse of government machinery by the Prime Minister.
प्रधानमंत्री जी बोलेंगे और प्रधानमंत्री जी बोलकर जिस तरह का उनका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड है गुजरात में या कहीं भी, वो मतदाताओं को प्रभावित हो सकते हैं। वो जो बातें कहें तो निश्चित रूप से सीधे सीधे उल्लंघन का मामला है आचार संहिता के, क्योंकि सरकारी संसाधन भी उसे कवर करेंगे।
मन की बात में जनता के मन की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, अपने मन की बात कर रहे हैं, अपना एजेंडा चला रहे हैं। तो कम से कम चुनाव में तो इस पर पाबंदी लगनी चाहिए।
There is definitely a very strong merit in that complaint, that during the election campaign, when the code of conduct is in operation, there are restrictions and everybody else. But does that apply to the Prime Minister or not? And if this medium is used for election propaganda, then it will definitely be a violation.
But the Election Commission disagrees. The Commission has said a blanket ban cannot be imposed on things like cabinet meetings and Mann Ki Baat. It also concluded that speeches on state-run radio are intended for a nationwide audience. However, the EC has promised to act if the radio show seemed like lobbying ahead of the polls.
The Congress going to the Election Commission complaining about a social platform, saying that the Prime Minister should not even give social messages, is absolutely appalling, and it shows the frustration of Congress.
The Prime Minister's next Mann Ki Baat is scheduled for the 20th of September. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the BJP-led NDA seems to be having its own share of problems ahead of the Bihar Assembly polls. Rashtriya Lok Samata Party has now expressed unhappiness over the BJP announcing its first list of candidates. The party claims that many of the seats for which the BJP announced its candidates should ideally fall in its kitty. The RLSP is the second alliance partner after the LJP to show discontent over the seat-sharing agreement.
Upendra Kushwaha and his party RLSP are unhappy with the first list of candidates of the BJP for the Bihar polls. RLSP has staked a claim on some of these seats. The party says BJP should not have announced names of candidates without reaching a seat-wise agreement.
निश्चित तौर से जिस तरीके से चीजें घटित हो रही हैं नहीं घटना चाहिए, लेकिन परिस्थितियां भी कुछ ऐसी है जिसमें खींचतान हो रहा है। इसका अच्छा ये नहीं है और इसे रोका जाना चाहिए।
On Tuesday, the BJP had announced a list with 43 names, out of which 19 are for the first phase. Out of the 43 candidates, almost 60% belong to the scheduled tribes or backward castes. But the party dismisses its alliance partners' unhappiness as a routine matter.
ये सही है कि हम जीतने वाला गठबंधन है, इसलिए हर सीट पर दबाव बहुत है और हर पार्टी पर दबाव है कि वो सीट उनको लड़नी चाहिए, लेकिन जितना भी एडजस्ट हो सकता है भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने पूरी कोशिश की है।
The infighting within the NDA has provided ammunition to the opposing alliance. The Grand Alliance accuses the BJP of insulting its smaller alliance partners.
रालोजपा हो चाहे लोजपा हो चाहे हम हो, तो नेता लोग तो सब सरेंडर कर दिए हैं। तो कार्यकर्ताओं में और दूसरे नीचे के नेताओं में असंतोष है, वो आ रहा है। अभी बीजेपी में भी जो है तो ये मापदंड अलग अलग लोग रख रहे हैं।
Besides RLSP, LJP has also made it clear that it is not happy with the seat sharing agreement. Even the Jitin Ram Manjhi-led HAM is still talking to the BJP on the issue. However, the chances of the alliance breaking up over this are remote. Shyam Sundar's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the other big national story. In the government today banned the Naga militant outfit, the NSCN Khaplang, for 5 years. It signals a tough approach by the centre 3 months after 18 Jawans were martyred in the Manipur attack. The ban comes days after the NIA also announced rewards for information on the top NSCNK leaders.
In June, a group of NSCNK militants ambushed an army convoy near Manipur-Myanmar border, killing 18 Jawans. It was the first major strike by the outfit 3 months after unilaterally abrogating a ceasefire agreement with the centre. The Indian forces had retaliated with a covert operation in which many militants were reportedly killed. However, the attack left the government to rethink its policy towards militancy in the northeast. It struck a framework deal with the other Naga outfit, NSCN-IM, in August. On Wednesday, the cabinet decided to counter the Khaplang faction of NSCN group with stricter measures, a ban as an unlawful organization for the next 5 years.
The Government of India, after elaborate consideration and based upon objective evidence, has decided that NSCN within bracket K be declared as an unlawful organization for a period of 5 years under the provisions of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967.
The ban on NSCNK comes days after the National Investigation Agency declared rewards for any information about its leader, SS Khaplang, and one of his deputies, Nikki Sumi. There are efforts to bring the faction to the talking table. A delegation of Naga civil society with government's consent has already gone to Myanmar to persuade Khaplang for talks. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, for more on this story, we're joined by senior journalist Deepak Diwan, joining us in studio this evening. Deepak, what's the kind of reactions that you are getting and what is your assessment of this move?
Well, actually, the people of Nagaland, they have been through the disturbed period for a long time. Now, this announcement of banning NSC and KA, people fear that there will be large-scale army operations against the militants, and then again there will be more disturbance on the civilians might get affected. So they have this fear. But at the same time, I spoke to today the Naga Ho-Ho president, Mr. Chuba Azukum. He described this move as a very unfortunate move. He says when the civil society is trying to persuade Khaplang to, to have the ceasefire with Government of India again, and this kind of move will not help, their efforts. So I think in a way they are right also. But, if you look at this NSCNK group, see, the group's chairman, Mr. Khaplang, he's a Naga from Myanmar, and he is a Hemi tribe which lives in Myanmar. And his other companion, Nikki Sumi, who's just become the chief of the armed wing, he is from Nagaland. He's from Tuensang area. And the thing is, if you see the past few years, his close associates like Kitobi, Mr. Kitobi, and General Khole, Kitobi was his prime minister in the underground government. He parted with him in 2011 without any bloodshed or any fight or something. And he started his own outfit called NSCN Unification. And they also have ceasefire with Government of India.
Yes.
See, on March 27 this year, when there was a ceasefire meeting scheduled to be held in Dimapur, his Khaplang's ceasefire monitoring chairman, Mr. Wang Ting, along with Mr. Tikhak, when they attended the meeting, they were told that Khaplang has already carried out an ambush on previous day, 26th, which they were not aware of. And the same evening, Khaplang announced that these two are expelled from his outfit, the Khaplang outfit. And following that, there was another outfit formed by this Wang Ting and Tikhak. And majority of the cadres, those who were with Khaplang's outfit, they have joined this outfit of Wang Ting and Tikhak, which is known as Reformation Group. There is some kind of polarization taking place in the last few years that Nagas of India and Nagas of Myanmar.
So is the government of India hoping to take advantage of these these fissures within these particular groups, and is that, one of the reasons why we're seeing this ban as well, which according to you, some of the reactions you're getting is perhaps a step a little too further. But what do you see happening on the ground, Deepak? Do we actually see more forces on the ground? And how do we see, in fact, NSCN-K reacting to this?
See, the government of India's viewpoint, if you look at, in case as they carried out an operation on June 4th, the government of our forces retaliated and they carried out, chased them and, carried out operation. There was similar operation few days back also, in which 5 of the Khaplang boys were killed. That operation also took along the border areas. See, once the ceasefire, which was mutually acceptable, has been sort of abrogated by one party, and then you carry out strikes, then obviously you don't expect security forces to just sit idle.
Absolutely.
I was speaking to the former Chief Minister and the MP here, Mr. Nifio Rio. He also had the same apprehension. He said the government of India should have shown more goodwill, in trying to bring overall peace. But and he also called this this announcement of this ban as very unfortunate for the Nagas. And everybody's keeping fingers crossed.
Yes.
What will happen now?
Absolutely. We'll leave it there for the moment. Deepak, thanks so much for joining us. This is, of course, a story we'll keep an eye out on Rajya Sabha TV. Meanwhile, let's head on to more news. And 2 more Indians have been abducted in war-torn Libya today. The Ministry of External Affairs said that they were apparently taken from the Ibn Sina area in Sirte, where they were employed. They have been identified as Pravash Ranjan Samal from Odisha and Ramamurthy Kosanam from Andhra Pradesh. The government is making all-out efforts, of course, to secure them. 2 other Indian nationals are still under captivity after being abducted by the Islamic State militants early in July. In fact, they were employed in the University of Sirte.
The mission in Tripoli is making further inquiries for confirmation of the incident and is in touch with local people who can help in securing release of the 2 Indian nationals. The matter has also been taken up at diplomatic level. All efforts are being made to ensure the well-being and secure early release of our nationals.
Without a quick break here, but up next, a day after North Korea starts its key nuclear reactor, the US issues a warning against irresponsible provocation.
UN Security Council reforms. Finally, a concrete step forward. UNGA agrees to adopt negotiating text for restructuring. What are India's chances of finding a permanent place on the Council? Watch The Big Picture at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Let's get you some financial news now. The RBI has given approval to set up small finance banks to 10 entities. These banks will provide basic banking services to small farmers and micro industries. RBI's in-principle approval will be valid for 18 months as it will enable these entities to comply with the guidelines on small finance banks. Now, only last month, the central bank had granted approval to 11 entities for launching payments banks. Besides this, IDFC and Bandhan have also been given full-fledged banking licenses. Small finance banks can provide basic banking services like accepting deposits and lending to unbanked sections like small farmers, micro business enterprises, micro and small industries and unorganized sector entities. In other news, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu formally released water from Godavari River into Krishna today, linking the two rivers. The event was held at Ibrahimpatnam village near Vijayawada. The Krishna Godavari Link project is being seen as a major development in drought-proofing the state.
After flowing over 150 kilometers, water from Godavari River in Andhra Pradesh has finally reached Krishna River on Wednesday. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu formally released water for the last 50 kilometers on Wednesday to complete the interlinking of the rivers through the Prakasham barrage near Vijayawada. Apart from Naidu, his cabinet ministers and thousands of farmers from 13 districts witnessed the moment from the spot. The event marks a milestone in the river interlinking project. The project aims to conserve 3,000 TMC of Godavari water draining into the Bay of Bengal annually. This will facilitate drinking and irrigation in arid Rayalaseema region, which is nearly 500 kilometers away from the Godavari water. The water has travelled 160 kilometers from Pattiseema to flow into the Krishna at Vijayawada. A 54-kilometer linking canal was built between Godavari and the Polavaram Right Canal. The government had conceived the project in March this year and set August 15 as the deadline. Naidu praised the project, saying it has resolved the tension between Andhra Pradesh and Telangana in drawing water from Sirisalam and Nagarjuna Sagar dams for irrigation in the Krishna Delta. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The government has defended its decision to discontinue stamps of former Prime Ministers Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. It said that postage stamps should honour leading lights of the nation, not members of just one family. Telecom Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad said that in the definitive stamp series, the focus was on just one family, while there were many other names that could be highlighted. He further added that a new definitive series of stamps will be issued on the advice of the Philatelic Advisory Committee. The stamps will honour Indian leaders like Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Bhagat Singh, Jayaprakash Narayan and Ram Manohar Lohia. In fact, the Congress had yesterday criticised the government's decision to discontinue the postal stamps, saying it was a sinister attempt to erase the memory of two martyr prime ministers of the country.
Here, the entire definitive series is an inclusive series, which seeks to encapsulate the contribution of all the leading lights of the freedom movement, including Jawaharlal Nehru. And this shows to our credit that we have been most liberal, understanding in giving due recognition to people.
ये बहुत ही निंदनीय काम है। जिन लोगों का स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में कोई भाग नहीं है, जिन लोगों का देश के विकास में कोई योगदान नहीं है, वो रहेंगे। और इंदिरा जी और राजीव जी को जिनको इस देश की जनता प्रेम करती थी, जिनको इस देश की जनता ने मान सम्मान के साथ अपना बहुमत दिया, उनकी तस्वीर हटा रहे हैं, तो ये गलत परंपरा है।
Well, let's get you some more updates from across the country nationwide now. Police have arrested a man in connection with the murder of senior Communist Party leader and rationalist Govind Pansare. He was shot by unidentified assailants in February. Samir Vishnu Gaikwad, an active member of Sanatan Sanstha, was nabbed during a joint operation by policemen from Sangli and Kolhapur. Gaikwad has been remanded in police custody for 7 days by a local court. The Maharashtra government has decided that in future, auto rickshaw permits would be issued to only those who can speak Marathi. But the Diwali gift, as the Maharashtra government is calling it, has run into controversy. The Congress and the NCP were quick to slam the decision, accusing the Shiv Sena and the BJP of whipping up the Marathi Manu sentiment in view of the coming Mumbai civic elections. Former Delhi Law Minister Somnath Bharti surrendered to the Delhi police today to join the investigation in a case of domestic violence. The AAP MLA surrendered hours after he was given an anticipatory bail by the Delhi High Court till the 17th of September. He alleged that his wife, Lipika Mitra, was being misused by rival parties for political ends. He also accused the Delhi police of working at the centre's behest, saying that they wanted to torture him in custody. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari today held wide-ranging talks with Cambodian Premier Hun Sen on the second day of his visit there. The day also saw the signing of 2 key MOUs to boost tourism and enhancing people-to-people contact. The Vice President's first visit to Cambodia is aimed at boosting bilateral partnership and enhancing economic engagement with ASEAN countries under India's Act East policy.
Day 2 of the Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari's visit to Cambodia focus on efforts to boost economic ties between the two nations. After receiving a grand welcome at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh, Ansari held wide-ranging talks with Cambodian Premier Hun Sen. The two sides also signed 2 MOUs, one on tourism and other on quick impact projects. Under the latter, there are 4 projects, 2 in healthcare, 1 on women's empowerment through information and communication technology, and 1 on agriculture.
Why is the number of Indian tourists so modest as far as Cambodia is concerned? I share your concern. I think we need to work on this, and the first step has been taken a few minutes back when we signed a memorandum of understanding between our two countries relating to tourism. I think on the basis of this, we can expand the infrastructure, including other facilities, airlines and other things.
In his address at the Office of the Council of Ministers, Vice President Ansari asserted that India's relationship with Cambodia was a key element in its Act East policy.
We in India value greatly our relations with Cambodia. We value it not only in bilateral terms, India-Cambodia terms, but also because this is part of a region which figures very prominently in our thinking, in our scheme of things.
India also thanked Cambodia for its support in multilateral fora, especially towards India's bid for a permanent UNSC seat. The Vice President, accompanied by his wife, will leave Cambodia for Laos on Thursday for the second leg of his visit.
As India embarks on its new phase of Act East policy, Vice President Hamid Ansari's visit to Cambodia is another leg forward towards economic integration of India into the ASEAN community. There's also a turning point in the Indo-Cambodia relationship. With Cambodia, this is Neelu Vyas signing off from Phnom Penh, Cambodia for Rajya Sabha TV.
The United Nations today called for a special court to try war crimes committed in Sri Lanka. Detailing the horrific crimes and abuses during the 9-year conflict, the UN report has blamed both the government and the rebels. But the Lankan government remains adamant on a domestic inquiry.
In a significant observation, the United Nations has accused both the Sri Lankan government and the Tamil Tiger rebels of committing war crimes during their 9-year conflict. A special court with international judges will now prosecute both sides.
One of the most significant recommendations contained in the report is the proposed establishment of a hybrid special court, integrating international judges, prosecutors, lawyers, and investigators.
Despite assurances by the new government under Maithripala Sirisena, the UN report notes that the National Criminal Justice alone could not carry out the huge task of examining the alleged crimes. Human rights activists have welcomed the decision, even though the Lankan government insists on a domestic inquiry. A similar commission set up by the previous government had lacked credibility.
The new political context in Sri Lanka is encouraging, and I believe the international community should remain engaged and support and accompany this process. Sri Lanka must also begin to dismantle the repressive structures and culture that remain deeply entrenched.
There are concrete recommendations in terms of what needs to be done. I think we may well have to look at that very seriously, because there is a question here about independence, and there's also the question here about competence.
Stressing on the systemic weaknesses, the UN now wants the government to bring in fundamental reforms to the security sector and judicial system. It also called on Colombo to remove any officials from the military and security forces who they believe were involved in human rights violations. The report estimates that some 40,000 Tamils lost their lives in the final stages of the conflict. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, in response to North Korea's threats of resuming operations at its main nuclear facility, the US has warned it to refrain from irresponsible provocation. The White House has advised North Korea to direct its energies towards fulfilling international obligations. The US said that it should work on maintaining regional peace and stability. The North's main ally, China, too, said that it opposed any nuclear weapons development on the Korean peninsula. Satellite images of the Yongbyon complex suggest work has started already. The North on Tuesday said that innovations are being made to improve the quality and quantity of its weapons. Pyongyang has issued several threats that it could use its weapons against arch-rival South Korea and its ally, the US, at any time.
We are, of course, monitoring the current situation on the Korean Peninsula, and we've seen recent provocative statements. We think those only heighten tensions. We call on Pyongyang to refrain from actions and rhetoric that threaten regional peace and stability and security in the area. And the department continues to urge North Korea to refrain from irresponsible actions that aggregate tensions and violate UN Security Council resolutions.
With that, let's take you through other international news updates in Global Buzz. A day after Hungary shut down its borders, migrants found a new route to reach the northern European countries. The first batch has already reached Croatia and is in waiting for the Croat government for a green signal to move to their next destination. Meanwhile, US President Barack Obama has extended cooperation to the European nations to tackle the crisis. Chinese President Xi Jinping will begin his first state visit to the US next week. President Barack Obama will host Xi at the White House. The two leaders will focus on expanding cooperation on a number of issues. 12 Turkish soldiers were wounded in a roadside bomb in the country's Kurdish southeast on Tuesday. The blast is suspected to be the handiwork of the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Tuesday's attack on a military vehicle transporting soldiers took place in the early hours on a highway in Mus province. And now let's change tracks and get you all the updates in Sports Beat. Leander Paes returned to India today after winning the US Open 2015 mixed doubles title with Martina Hingis on Saturday. Paes and his Swiss partner Hingis became the first team since 1969 to win 3 Grand Slam mixed doubles titles in the same season. Paes will next partner Rohan Bopanna during India's Davis Cup World Group playoff tie against the Czech Republic starting at the weekend. Shuttler PV Sindhu started her campaign at the Korea Open with a hard-fought win over Thailand's Ratchanok Intanon. In fact, Sindhu defeated her opponent 21-19, 21-23, 21-13. But in the men's section, P. Kashyap lost the opening round in the men's singles event. He lost to Wei Nan of Hong Kong in 3 games. Cristiano Ronaldo moved 3 clear of Lionel Messi at the top of the Champions League scoring charts. He scored a hat-trick against Shakhtar Donetsk in a 4-0 win on Tuesday. Ronaldo now has 80 Champions League goals with 8 in his last 2 games. Meanwhile, Barca forward Messi will appear in his 100th Champions League game for the club as Barca open the defense of their crown against Roma. Messi has scored 77 goals and is 3 behind Cristiano Ronaldo at the top of the Champions League goal-scoring charts. And that's all we could pack in on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night.